Hey, welcome into a Monday version of the Husker247 Daily. Michael Bruntz here, Brian Christopherson there. Lots to discuss today. Off the weekend, obviously, we talked about the loss to USC on the podcast yesterday. Let's get into the news of the day. Sunday, around 1:45, we learned officially that Dylan Raiola out for the season with a what did they do? A lower leg,
That
lower body injury. It's a broken bone in his leg.
yeah.
But he's done for the year. Still 3 more games on the schedule on a bye week, and it's officially TJ Lateef time. Initial reaction, Brian Christopherson, when the news came.
Not surprised. Disappointed. You know, when you first saw him get up and have to be assisted off the field the way he was, it was a bad deal. You knew you sometimes can see a guy and it's like, okay, he's kind of working it out himself. And he was trying on the sideline. We were watching him in like the 5 to 10 minutes after, and it didn't look good. It didn't look like a guy who should go back in the game. And Matt Rule's post-game quotes about how, like, Dylan actually wanted to go back in the game with that injury. And now what that injury is, that speaks to how tough he is. Like, I mean, that's a dude who is still trying to play in that game with a broken bone, down, as you say, lower leg is what they're calling it. But that's impressive to me, just the want to go out there. And you know what? He stayed involved in the game too. Like, he was highly invested in like Latif as he was trying to finish that game out. And so I have a lot of respect for Dylan for that. He ended up with 2,000 passing yards on the dot, is actually what it was, with 18 touchdowns, 6 picks. I know there's some things he'd want back, and unfortunately, the last plays is one he'd want back. He also had a couple building moments for this program that you hope they can carry into these last few games, where you'd have that drive late against Maryland on the road when you're behind. You had that drive against Northwestern when it was tied. They were behind against Michigan, and they mustered it up. So there was progress in that standpoint for him in this offense. But it's a big blow now because everybody always calls for the backup quarterback, and I'm excited to see what TJ Lateef can do. But this isn't a video game. It's not going to be easy, to just insert another guy in there against the schedule that remains.
Let's talk TJ Lateef. I guess we'll transition there. We saw TJ in kind of mop up duty during the non-conference schedule. That was the first Big Ten action that we had seen him in when he was kind of thrust into things the other night. Obviously, when you kind of have to pivot as quickly as Nebraska did, the game plan changes from what you had. I think people need to understand that, yes, you're getting the backup ready, but at the same time, during the course of a week, you're still not getting the type of reps with the number one offense that you would want to be ready to just step into a game like that. But what are you kind of expecting Nebraska to do with kind of a full week to digest things and game plan an offense that, is frankly going to be run by a quarterback with a little bit of a different skill set and different strengths?
Yeah, it's a matter of, okay, sort of dialing in what are the 10 to 12 things this guy does really well, and maybe there's 4 or 5 things that are staples for him that you feel like he's a little stronger at than, like, we're different from Dylan, not necessarily that he's better at them, but just something that he can lean into more. And maybe Dylan had this other thing that was more his deal. I obviously Captain Obvious comment is, like, with his legs, I think he's got a little bit more mobility. He definitely even surprised his staff. They've said this about how he could run when he got here. Like, they thought he could do all right with it, but you don't know, even when he's in the green jersey, like, oh, okay, guys are laying off of him. Maybe he's good with his feet, maybe he's not. Then he got in the games and you're like, you know what? He's got a little burst to him and you could probably do something with that. So I think everybody understands, and UCLA does too, if they've done their homework, that Nebraska will probably press more into that with the QB run, at least something that the defense has to be aware of. But you know what? They're going to let him throw the ball. This last game, I think you made a good point, Bruntz. You're kind of caught in the middle. You didn't have the full week of number one reps planning with Lateef. And so the pass game was sort of just brought down to like sort of screens, and like 5 of the 7 passes were like basically right at the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they'll get a dosage of that, but I think they'll let him wing it around a little bit. And he has shown a good live arm. You know, I know the competition, but he had like that home run ball to Cortez Mills, which was pretty, and he was wide open, but you know, he puts it right on there. And they've been impressed with like how he's had a learner's mindset to try to get himself ready for this. So I think he's got the brain and the desire to try to figure stuff out that gives you a fighting chance here, at least.
It's kind of a fascinating setup because you have a Southern California quarterback going home to make his first career start. I'm sure there's maybe some pressure with that, but there's also probably a little bit of excitement. I mean, let's be honest, if you were kind of lining up a road game that you'd like a freshman quarterback to make his first start in, with all apologies to the UCLA fan base, it's not like you'd be making it at Penn State or at the Big House or something like that. Like it feels like a manageable situation that you're at least walking into from that point of view, and kind of dealing with everything outside the matchup. And, you know, I think people need to remember, I mean, he was an Elite 11 quarterback.
He was.
And played in one of the, you know, better, more talented high school leagues in this country at Orange Lutheran in high school. So, you know, it's not like he's going into this blind about what's ahead of him. So I think that helps. I also think that when you kind of go back and watch the way that he played in high school, he's not a kid that really has a ton of fear. I mean, he was not afraid to get out of the pocket. Typically was not a guy that was going to just run out of bounds when he was along the sidelines. He's not the biggest quarterback, but I do think that, you know, there is maybe a little bit of benefit to him, you know, playing in a place that's at least on the surface a little comfortable.
That's a really good point. And also within it, you were getting at it too, like his background at Orange Lutheran. Quarterbacks, I think, that are especially like the 4-star Elite 11 types, they still got to put in the work day by day, but they come in like further ahead, like they're more advanced, like they've had QB teaching sometimes since they're like 12 years old. I feel like you're seeing it across the country. There's going to be growing pains, but you can also see young players every week that are like first year guys that they have wow moments, and they can lead drives and win games. And so I'm glad you said what you did, because I started it off with the challenge. It's not a video game. That's true. But, Rule has won games with freshman quarterbacks. He had Raiola last year. He had Charlie Brewer, Baylor, PJ Walker at Temple. So this is another one. And so it will be an advantage that now he's got a whole week. Like, okay, what do you do well? Let's throw this off to the side. Let's not overweight this guy and what he's got to think about. And that's going to help out. UCLA hasn't been a juggernaut on defense, and the crowd noise shouldn't be a big factor. In fact, I think there'll be as many Nebraska fans as UCLA. So perfect setup there, perfect climate. He's officially from Compton, California on his bio, but I mean, he's in that area, and this is it's kind of cool for him that this is how it begins.
I think, I mean, this is not at all discounting the challenges of stepping in and you know, making a start like this. But I mean, I think it does help that you also have a running game that over the last few games you felt like you can lean on a little bit. I mean, I think you're going to see a steady dose of that anyways, regardless of who the quarterback is. But if you can, you know, give them a little help with the running game, I mean, that I would imagine will help a young quarterback settle down a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to give Emmett credit for how he's kept his body in shape to be that guy who can assist like that for a quarterback. I mean, he had 29 carries this last week. Hopefully he came out of that one fresh enough, and you could run him probably 25 to 30 again. And I bet they will, because you got a bye week after this. And so this is going to be a game where you're going to tell guys, and they're going to want to, I think, because they know what's at stake after losing that one Saturday. They're going to want to empty the tank and obviously help their quarterback out. So I don't think a high pitch count for Emmett is bother him at all. He'll probably say, I want that.
Some other moving pieces for Nebraska this week, obviously, that are going to have a say on the quarterback spot. Elijah Pritchett left the game on Saturday. We'll learn a little bit more about that. Nebraska's having to shuffle the chairs at offensive tackle. Probably not ideal when you're trotting a young quarterback out there, but we'll hear from Matt Rule later today. I'm sure some updates on that. Plenty of talk about the quarterback spot. We'll have all of that and more at Husker 24/7, so keep it locked there.